TCU football continuing to do work in the spring portal window. We have a special guest on the show today to give us some insight on one of their new defensive linemen that's coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. The guy in the box next to me, he also has a podcast that's free and available wherever you find those things. Locked On Coogs, covering Houston, Parker Ainsworth. He was kind enough to join us during football and basketball season. And today we're talking about a new player for the Frogs that they landed in the portal, Hakeem Ajijalaya, a defensive lineman, big defensive lineman. And part of our coverage of the portal here on the Locked On Network is we've had all our hosts doing short kind of snippet videos, instant reaction to these portal departures. So Parker, I watched yours yesterday, and I mean, Hakeem, the tackles, the stats weren't always eye-popping, but that's kind of just the nature of the position. But you were genuinely disappointed in this. It seems like you felt like this was a guy that could be really impactful for Houston this upcoming season.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on to talk about it, Stephen. He's a Katy native, so just outside of Houston, the suburbs, and he'd weathered the spring. He looked like he was going to kind of be an important part of things moving forward. You mentioned he's a big guy, 6'2", 325, and honestly, like very coordinated and balanced at 325. Obviously, every strength conditioning coach is going to say to cut a little bit from that, but I wouldn't say from a playing weight necessarily he needs to. I'm really, really impressed by his growth over the last two seasons as a more full-time player than starter last year. I guess I didn't really think – I mean, everyone leaves when you change coaches, right? So I guess that I should have been assuming more. And I think that's really what this is a coaching change. It's just kind of a chance to get a little change of scenery for the kid. But I guess I kind of thought once he got through spring ball, I was like, oh, we might get to keep this guy. And then obviously things change, but he's really talented, really, really talented.
Dana Holgorsen was talking about him at the beginning of last season. He got in the game because I think it was against UTSA where he got in the game because of an injury, and then he got more snaps after that. But Hakeem's got a cool story, right? I mean, he was a walk-on originally, earned a scholarship, and then sort of gradually worked his way up the depth chart for the Coogs.
Yeah, so he shows up as a walk-on, again, local kid, Katy kid. He was actually listed as a 3-star recruit on a couple different outlets, and then others had him as an unranked no-star recruit, right? But and earned a scholarship, worked his way up. He shows up as a freshman in 2019, gets redshirted. 2020 is the COVID year, so that he plays that, but doesn't count against him. 2021, he shows up and plays, but mostly special teams, extra points, that kind of stuff. And then 2022 is when he really kind of became a rotational guy. And then you mentioned 2023, injury to Chidozie Nwankwo, nose tackle, then move some stuff around and get him in the game early. And then he ends up starting like 6 or 7 games last year, right? And there's a rotation defensive lineman, but for all the holes in Houston's defense last year, I thought the defense line was pretty strong. Chidozie is now at Colorado, getting the Dion bag or whatever that those guys do. But 2 of the other guys on the defensive line are undrafted free agents that are, signed to camp rosters already, right? So like talented group, and he very much was a key part of that as a bigger, again, 325 pounds interior kind of guy.
Is his biggest asset you can't teach that type of size and that ability to be kind of an immovable object in the middle. What about mobility and kind of his agility, I guess, as a player as well?
I wouldn't call him fast, but I would call him agile. And I think that that's an interesting difference, right? Like he's not going to have the most explosive get off, but he's got crazy balance and he's really good on his toes. There was a couple plays against UCF at the end of the season, last game of the season, right? You're hoping to finish strong or whatever. And I thought individually he did great things about getting to quarterback depth and then getting back to the quarterback, or doing a little like, a defensive lineman coach would call it an ice pick, but I think the layperson called it a spin move kind of thing, right? To get out of a double team. He's got really good balance for a guy that big, and good bend and good body movement. I think another year at college, especially like I said, we graduated high school in 2019, is going to be really, really important for him. I don't know if he's a pro or not, but I know that y'all are obviously replacing some bigger guys along the line. He's a big body. And frankly, again, I mentioned he's from Katy. It's not horribly far away as far as the Big 12 goes that he's leaving for. So I shouldn't be super surprised, but he's a good one, man. I think he'll get a good kid.
Well, while you're here, Willie Fritz, his first spring camp is wrapped up. And you mentioned when a new coach comes in, World College Football now, there's so much roster turnover. How would you say he's made his imprint so far on this roster? What have you noticed about the type of guys he has brought in or the type of identity he's trying to bring to the Houston Cougar program?
It's a lot more, lunch pail kind of guys, right? He is a defense first coach. They're going to run the football. He doesn't say that exclusively, and he's not an offensive coach. He leaves it to Kevin Barbay, the OC, the new offensive coordinator. But his game at Tulane was Tajay Spears, right? I mean, that was what the kind of things they did when they were good at Tulane. He's done that when he was at Blinn Junior College, Sam Houston State, they run the football and play good defense and don't make mistakes. He's running around practice, screaming, hollering, sweating, and his shirt says "play through the echo of the whistle." He is that kind of old school guy, right? And what's happened is, there was some, whether it worked or not, some glitz and glam to the Dana Holgorsen thing, right? A bunch of receivers. You're thinking and not that he ran the air raid necessarily his most recent stint at Houston, but you thinking air raid, you're thinking passing the ball, you're thinking old Case Keenum days when you're like out there on the recruiting trail. And that's not what this iteration of the Houston Cougars are aiming to be at all. I think part of the reason, obviously, losing Akeem as a defensive lineman is a big deal, but some of the notable skill position guys have left Houston, honestly, because I think there aren't going to be enough balls thrown. A lot of receivers left because they need to get their stats up to get to the league, and Houston's probably only going to throw it 25 times a game, right? And so how many balls really get passed around that way? Again, in that same defensive mindset, keeping Akeem Achish-Alai would have been nice, but you can't, beggars can't be choosers. I think in the long run, the program's in the right direction. Just in the immediate short run, sucks to lose a kid like that.
Is Donovan Smith, you think, going to be the dude at QB? He got a lot of snaps last year. Is he going to survive this transition as a starter?
I think he does, and I think that first of all, publicly, the staff has said that having a guy like Donovan already in place is a key part of coming, right? A guy with veteran leader with a bunch of snaps under his belt. He played rotationally at Texas Tech before coming to Houston, so he's played in the Big 12 for a while. I think he's the guy next year. They didn't really bring in, that's all public, and then behind the scenes, they didn't bring in a whole bunch of guys that were plug and play starters next year either. The biggest transfer name they got at a skill position at all, but certainly at a quarterback spot, is Zion Chris. He's a quarterback from Louisiana. I always want to say Louisiana Lafayette, but it's technically just Louisiana now. And he's like a 4-3, 4-4 kind of burners running quarterback, but he's still a project, right? And so I could see packages with him at quarterbacks, stuff like that, but I don't see anyone pushing Donovan out of the way next fall. Where they go as far as like when Willie gets to pick his guy is interesting. Do they go with Zion Chris? Do they go with more of a Donovan? Do they go with somebody completely different? I don't know. They got a bunch of offers out in 2025s and 26s. But I do think that Donovan's the guy this fall.
He's Parker Ainsworth. You should subscribe to Locked On Coogs. Parker's one of the sharpest guys at the network. He's a coach in real life. So when he says something, it actually means something, opposed to, me just kind of gasbagging on here. But Parker, thank you for joining us, and plug, Locked On Coogs and where people can find you before you go here.
Yeah, all social media services. I'm Painsworth 512, PAINSWORTH 512. All things Houston on social media, all Houston sports all the time. The Astros are down, the Rockets are down. Cougar basketball is up though, so we're cheering it on.
That's right. You got the good end of Houston sports right now. That's for sure. When we come back, TCU added a defensive back from Texas in the portal. I'll tell you more about that next. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every. You can't mess around with your vehicle. You have to get the right parts. You have to treat your vehicle right. That's why you should use eBay Motors, even if you're someone like me that doesn't know the first thing about cars other than, how to drive them and how to pop the hood. eBay Motors, it's the best place to go to find a part for a vehicle. Passion, drive, and patience. It's a formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle or level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. 122 million parts are available for your number one ride. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And they have their eBay Guaranteed Fit program, which allows you to put the part in your cart, and it'll tell you based on your vehicle if that's the right part and the right choice for your car. eBay Motors, millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. eBay Motors, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. TCU football, I think they're doing smart, calculated things, moves in the transfer portal so far in the spring window. James Brockermeyer, center from Alabama. I feel like he's definitely a guy that can at least compete for a spot at that center or guard position. Helps with the depth in the interior offensive line. Hakeem Ajijalai, who I talked about yesterday and just now with Parker Ainsworth. Parker, big fan of his, says he's got great balance, good size, ability to make plays, has 2 years of eligibility left. Crazy now in this world of college football where eligibility just continues to go on in perpetuity, it seems like. But, hey, it's good for TCU. He's got some time. He's got great size. He projects well as a prospect. And, again, added depth, added stability for your defensive line room. So being helpful in the trenches. Frogs also added Austin Jordan today, defensive back from Texas. Now, Austin has not played a ton during his 2 seasons in Austin, no pun intended, but during his time at Texas. However, he was behind, some good players in a loaded DB room. He did have 11 tackles and 1 interception between 2 seasons playing for Steve Sarkisian. And as a prospect in high school, was a 4-star prospect, was recruited by just about everybody in the country, played at Denton Ryan, one of the premier programs in the DFW area, premier programs in high school football in general. Looking at a scouting report from Gabe Brooks from 247 when he was evaluated going into the 2022 class, possesses good size for a defensive back, can play corner or safety, has above average height. He's 6'1", great athletic build, played cornerback predominantly during his time in high school, ran a 10.98 100 as a freshman and 11.04 100 as a junior, and also had good track times on 200 and more. Flashes speed with wideouts and has the length and ability to disrupt at the catch point. So projects as a good prospect, projects as a good player. Now, one interesting thing about that scouting report that caught my eye, because I'm intrigued as to why they would bring in a corner. Now, they lost a few guys through the portal, but they added a lot of players in that first window. They've got some solid experience there. This apparently, though, is an athlete and a player that could project to the safety position, at least according to evaluators. So that safety spot, which is more nuanced and requires athletic players who can play in different roles and can play up the line of scrimmage and also be effective in coverage and be a great athlete in this new defense under Andy Avalos. If he's a better fit there, would TCU consider making that move to safety and having him play as a deep safety in this defense? I think TCU needs better athletes and guys who are better in coverage at those spots. Last few seasons, I don't think it was as simple as just bad scheme. Now, the scheme was harmful at times because I think it allowed quarterbacks a ton of time to sit back there and go through their progressions. It allowed receivers a lot of times to run long developing routes, and it's hard to play in any sort of coverage, but especially if you're kind of in man-up situations, it's hard to play in those situations forever. And I feel like offenses learned through the years under Joe Gillespie that they could isolate those safeties in space in man-to-man situations and really get some big plays by doing that. So could Jordan be an upgrade in that regard? He's be a very athletic player who could cover wide receivers, tight ends, maybe in nickel and dime situations. He can come down the slot and play in coverage. We'll have to see. But it fits the mold of the type of players that they have brought in since Avalos took over, which are long, rangy, athletic guys who can have some position flexibility and have the ability to make plays. I like this take. I think this is the type of guy that you take a chance on. Okay, hasn't played a lot in a couple seasons. Now, it does sort of go against their philosophy in this offseason so far, which has been heavily predicated on we're going to go after players that have college football playing experience, that should be able to get to speed quickly on what we're doing, that have the ability to learn an offense and defense, that understand what it takes from a work ethic standpoint, from a culture standpoint, to step in and be immediately impactful in a new environment. But Jordan, this seems to me like a guy that, okay, he was kind of log jammed in a very deep defensive back room at Texas. An opportunity to play is what he's looking for. Hopefully that's something that will inspire him to really come in and play at a high level right away. So Austin Jordan from Texas, corner, but maybe projects to that safety spot as well. 6'1", 206 pounds, great athlete, originally from Denton Ryan, was a 4-star prospect. TCU lands him in the transfer portal as they continue to try to build this roster and build this team in a critical year for Sonny Dykes and his coaching staff, coming off a disappointing season last year. When we come back, some audience reaction, also an update on the 2025 class. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day. Monopoly Go. If you're looking for a new game to compete, to pass the time, whatever your interests are, Monopoly Go is a place to be. You can download it for free on the App Store and Google Play. And Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. It's a classic Monopoly game you love with some new and exciting twists. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Monopoly Go, Google Play or the App Store. It's there for free. The new game that you'll be addicted to on your cellular device. Also want to talk about Yahoo Finance. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio? Oh, man. Let's get straight to the point. Let me try again. As you can tell by the way I pronounce portfolio, I'm not a financial expert. I'm not somebody who deals with investments and a lot of money, but Yahoo Finance is. They can deal with the rising cost of inflation, pay off your debt to your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom. When it comes to your financial freedom in future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you invested all you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every great financer uses, Yahoo Finance. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance, they are a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network, and we thank them for rocking with us here on Locked On Horned Frogs. So quick update, and then I'll get to some audience reaction. A few of you have asked me, because Floyd Guidry, who is a TCU commit, he's a defensive line commit, he tweeted this weekend that he was committed, and a few people reached out to me and they said, hey, is this a new player in the 2025 class? And the short answer is no. I mean, Floyd's been committed for a while. He's one of the first commits in this class. He's from Spring, Texas. He's a 3-star player, has got an impressive offer list, Baylor, Cal, Duke, Houston, and many others. But no, he's been committed. Now, I don't know why he decided to publicly kind of announce again that he was committed to TCU, or if it was just kind of weird phrasing on his part, or he just wanted to make it known to people that he was reiterating this commitment. But he's here, and he's an exciting prospect. He's got great size. He projects, I think, as a really good college player. And he seems like one of those guys, again, that TCU got in on early in the process. He'll probably get a lot of interest as the year goes on because of who he is, and I assume he's going to put together a really good senior year. But Floyd's been in the fold for a while. He just decided to kind of publicly make it known that he is locked into TCU again after taking an official visit with a lot of prospective prospects this weekend. So always good to have that positivity around your program, and you want guys who are excited to tell everybody, hey, this is where I want to be. He said he's 1,000% committed. So excited for him and his family as they, made that happen and made it known to people that he's had TCU. Wanted to get to some audience reaction from yesterday's show. Talked about TCU adding a defensive lineman, Hakeem Ajijalaya from Houston, and also TCU basketball in the portal. Brian Capers said we're going to the Kansas game this year. We found out they'll play at Arrowhead Stadium, home of the Chiefs. That's pretty cool. That is really cool, Brian. I'm excited you're going to that game. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting games of the year to me. I've had that circled on the schedule for sure. Jalen Daniels, will he be healthy? Will he be available? Will he be playing? Also, just the idea of what will the advantage or disadvantage be for Kansas playing their home games in that stadium. Now, Arrowhead can get really loud. Chiefs fans are incredible. That's always a place where the noise level is at a very high level. But it's not on campus. It's not near Lawrence. So I guess it's near Lawrence, but you know what I mean. It's not there on campus. Will that deter some people from going? I guess we'll have to see. But excited for you to get that experience. That's awesome that you're going to get to see them in a NFL stadium. Someone also asked, did you just say we're going to 4-down lineman bless? Yeah, I mean, Andy Avalos' defense, it's much more multiple. I mean, you'll see some 3-down line fronts, but I think you're going to see a lot of 4-down linemen. That's going to be their base front. I guess technically you could say 5 in some cases when you have that outside linebacker who's a stand-up edge player, but more similar to what we saw in Gary Patterson's defense, at least from the perspective of 4-down linemen, very aggressive, bringing pressure from different angles, trying to create chaos, trying to create negative plays, not so much of an attitude of, hey, let's just try to keep things in front of us. Don't give up big plays and rally the ball. This is a defense that's going to try to create turnovers, create negative plays, create those splash plays that you love to see from defenses. Richard Berry says great lines make decent skill players look really good. TCU's been putting linemen in the NFL. The draft has shown that linemen come from all over, so they can capitalize on that visit. It would be awesome. And Richard's talking about Ty Haywood, a 5-star offensive lineman that visited TCU this past weekend. And you're right, TCU's got a great track record of putting guys in the league at that position group. And yes, games are won in the trenches. That's the bottom line. If you have dominant play on the offensive defensive line, you can cover up a multitude of sins and flaws with your football team. If you don't, there's really nowhere to hide. And I think last season TCU saw that if you have an inconsistent offensive line, even if you have good skill players, and I would say in the second half of the year, good quarterback play, it can be really difficult to get your offense off the ground and be efficient in scoring situations if you just don't have the ability to block and to make things happen. So that's one thing that I know a lot of people are hoping to get squared away for TCU this upcoming season. And Travis Garnett said he concurs on the basketball segment. Would love to see more experience and quality depth at the 4 and 5 spots, especially that fit the needs of the program. I'm sorry, I should have watched that before I mentioned it. I'm not sure if you're talking about the men or the women. I guess it could apply to both. But yes, need better play at the forward and the center position. Ernest Uday is going to need some depth behind him. I talked about Trezarian White, who has been on a visit for TCU from UNC Wilmington, power forward, small forward type player who could maybe replace the role that Emmanuel Miller's been in for the past few years. And then on the women's side, need someone to help out Sonona Prince. They've got a lot of great guard play. I'm excited about what they're going to do in Mark Campbell's offense, that spread pick and roll. But yes, need more of a presence on the inside, both offensively and defensively this upcoming season. We'll be back tomorrow talking more TCU athletics. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.